Thank you, Maury. I see that you can still not properly spell my name after all these years, but it's okay. It's man like in Manhattan. That's what I tell people all day long. I'm used to it. It's okay. It's just fun teasing you. Uh, Sorry, my voice is not so good. I just came back from 2 weeks in traveling around. I went to Vegas, LA, New Zealand, and back. And in the process, I caught the flu, not COVID, but the flu. So I'm recovering now, but my voice is not very good. Look, I'm one of those people who started COVID, I mean, the pandemic, right, with the idea that the world would be different afterwards. And for me, it was. The first month, we were all trying to scramble and do what we had to do. I was, like you said, running Ipsos at the time. We had about, I don't know, 2,500 employees to take care of, and I was very worried about the consequences of the business and try to protect jobs before anything else. And of course, the personal safety of people. And then, the business quickly rebounded like many industries. And so after that, we're back on track. But for me, we're still not back in the office, right? And for me, I entered this probably this 1 year of a massive introspection about everything, right? Especially in my professional life, and I was still like day to day. People wouldn't feel it. I think I was trying to be the same with our teams, our clients. You're playing a role when you're the CEO, of course, and you have to live up to the expectations of everyone. But in my inner inside, I was really, really questioning a lot of things. And it's nothing that I was questioning was new. It was all stuff that I had been thinking about for a long time. But you're postponing the moment when you take action because you're so busy and you're keeping yourself busy doing stuff, right? So at night when you're really tired, you just go to bed. And the next morning you start again, and you avoid all the thinking. But during COVID, in a way, I had more opportunities for introspection, as I think we all had. And I had worked for Ipsos over the last 17 years. So I had 16 years in several different companies. Initially starting as a consultant, and then running a publishing company, then running another company in the MarTech area. Then I joined Ipsos initially in Europe. I run our European business, and then 10 years ago, I moved to the US. I resettled here. We had made a big acquisition. That's how I think more or less at the time when I met with you, Maury, and then I stayed because I liked it. But I was, well past my 50th birthday, and thinking, okay, what do I do next? Like, do I stay 10 more years in the same job, same company? Do I see myself not doing anything new, or should I change, do something different? And I had, a few opportunities. It's not like when you do the kind of job I do that you get an offer every 5 minutes, like my sons do. But sometimes you have opportunities, and I've always, in some way, found a way not to accept or find something that would not work out. Like I managed not to make a change without really admitting it. But I felt, I need one last thing. I need to renew myself, because otherwise, I don't know, I'd be bored, I'd be bad. I'm not. Plus, I developed such a big team and great people, and I felt like I'm gonna be a problem to my own team, because if I stay, we would be stuck in ways of doing that I believe are the right ways of doing. I'm gonna be there, nobody's gonna be taking my job, so that doesn't create a lot of opportunities for people either. So I was really, really thinking about that. Then turns out that the founder of Ipsos left. It was a complicated succession process, but anyway, for me, it was a perfect opportunity from all standpoints, contractual standpoints with Ipsos, and also timing to leave without having a very clear plan. So I left. Long story short, my separation with Ipsos, like in this role, it's never very easy. So I wanted to be free to do whatever I wanted, but it doesn't work that way. So I had a very long non-compete that hasn't even expired yet, and we're talking about September last year, right? So it will only expire at the end of this year. So almost forced to do something different, which I felt was not like necessarily a bad thing in a way, rather than going to run Kantar or do whatever. So I thought, okay, this is for me a blank page, and I have to accept it. The first big decision for me was, do I stay in the US or do I go back? And my wife is here, our kids are all gone. They're back in Europe. So it was a very big decision. And that kind of a moment when you feel, I don't even know if I'm going to stay in this country or moving to a different country. And by the way, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, are fairly scary. I would tell you. I mean, people say I felt the excitement of the unknown. For me, the unknown is one of the most difficult things to deal with. The unknown is very difficult for achievers, right? You want to control your fate. You want to control what you're going to do next. You want to know what's going to happen. And although you know that the unknown is going to most likely open up opportunities and it's going to be better in the end, the fact that you don't know what is the unknown is very, very difficult to manage. And those first months were pretty difficult. I thought I'm going to take a big break, think about all of that. So one day I woke up, this is my first day of break. And my wife tells me, look, as you're not doing anything, this is the list of errands you need to run and all those things you need to do. And okay, I can do that for sure, but I don't know if that is the life that I'm going to be happy with for a long time. So frankly, and very honestly, day one, I started to make contacts, right? And, reach out to people I knew and say, first of all, a lot of people from Ipsos wanted to talk to me. So I spent a lot of my days in the first week or weeks were very similar to what I was doing before, mostly talking to people and see how they were doing and giving them advice and do stuff like that. But I started to do two things. I started to do some volunteering work, not volunteering in the sense of necessarily the one kind of things that you all think about, but there is a pretty strong French tech community in the US. So a lot of startups that are expanding to the US, CEOs that are moving to the US, very talented people. And many of them want to succeed in the US market. They want to, their dream, of course, is to get listed on the NASDAQ and make a fortune and all of that kind of things. And so I gave my time to coach many of them as they were trying to understand how to succeed in the US as another French national who, had some understanding of what it takes to succeed here. Just for the record, my basic advice to any European coming to the US is that when you come to the US, you have to think big. And I tell them the problem, so that they understand it. I said the problem that sometimes Americans have when they go to Europe is that they think big instead of thinking smart, right? So try to do the reverse. Forget about the smart thing, think big, because otherwise you won't exist in this market. But anyway, so I did this for a while. I realized once more, I transitioned one time 17 years ago. I left a company I was the CEO of a company that got sold by the private equity firms that own them. So, part of the process in that case, when you're the CEO, is technically you have to leave. So I left and I was, looking for a job. I joined Ipsos, but it took me a few months of negotiation, discussion. So I already had this experience. And then you realize that your life, your job doesn't define you in any way, right? So people like you the same or even more once you leave your job. I mean, you're not an asshole anymore. Like, you're not telling people, oh, I'm going to be late at the dinner, or I got to do something else, or you're focused on other things. So your relationship with people actually develop even better once you're not actively in the workforce, which lasted for me a few weeks. Your friends like you better, your family likes you better because you take more time with them. And you saw some photos here. Like my friends asked me if I could be the godfather of their daughter, stuff that didn't happen that often to me before, frankly. So I took it as a mark of okay, I'm actually more available and nicer now than I was before, probably. And then you realize that even the people you've known at work, they don't like you less or respect you less because you're not the CEO of a company anymore, for a while. That being said, I thought I wanted to do something that fit with my huge intellectual curiosity in general. So my entire life, I worked for knowledge-based companies. I mean, now it's kind of frequent, but I really did this a lot. I run a publishing company. I mentioned that before. Ipsos is a company where you get to learn a ton of things about a ton of countries, societies, people. And I had this kind of interest for working in education. I had actually been approached a few years back to run an educational institution. So I, through contacts, through my French tech contacts, the CEO of a wonderful company called Open Classrooms, which is a edtech company that is expanding worldwide right now. He put me, we had a few drinks in Brooklyn where he lives. He's a 30 years old guy, right? So this is where he lives. And he put me in contact with the largest European institution or groups of educational institutions in Europe. That guy I'd heard of before. Anyway, so I got in touch with him and I pitched him a temporary assignment, something that I could do for a while that would not be for me a long-term commitment. I was exactly feeling like the guy who divorces after 25 years of marriage and doesn't really feel like remarrying right away. So I felt like having this kind of role where I would act more like as a consultant. In fact, I was in charge of doing M&A for them outside of Europe. And so I worked with them on that. It was very fulfilling from a technical standpoint. I learned back how to, deal myself with due diligence processes, contracts, Excel spreadsheets, working with very talented PE kind of people on very technical stuff. So I would spend my entire days working on my personal stuff that not delegate to anyone else because there was no one to delegate to except of course for bankers and auditors and all of that. So I had a lot of suppliers and vendors, but I had no team, right? So I did this for a while and then I realized that not having teams is still frustrating. You want to do things, at least I want to do things in life where I can impact the life of people. And I realized that as much as I thought that I didn't need to lead teams, that was not necessarily what I like the most, doing technical work. So I got this opportunity. PMI approached me, very global organization, very interesting because it's not a large company. We have about 750 employees, $300 million of revenue. We do certifications, learning. We do basically three things. We connect people, we provide knowledge and learning, and then there's a lot of give back activities as well and social impact. So it's a whole profession, people managing projects. So we sometimes think about IT here and tech, but it's not just that. It's people building cities. It's people sending rockets to the moon. It's the Boeing guys. It's all these guys. There are so many of them. They need to be recognized technically as professionals. So there are certifications, and all of these are managed by my organization. And around those certifications, we have all the learning and a whole system of volunteers and members and chapters, local chapters. We have chapters in 210 countries. So it's an incredible human experience where we have millions of people engaged. And I'm discovering what it is to be a CEO who is also the sort of, I'm saying this very humbly, but the sort of celebrity just by the status of the job, because I represent the organization for so many people in so many different countries. So I'm learning what it means, and how much I need to be always the role model for the company. And I knew that before at Ipsos, but now I really realize the kind of pressure you have when you're not a CEO, but frankly, but a politician. It's a combination of both, running an organization, but also acting as someone who's representing, who's embodying an organization even more than the usual CEO among a very large community. So this is what I'm doing now. I started only 3.5 months ago, so I'm learning. And frankly, that's to me the perfect illustration of a principle of I think I've professed for many years, and I probably told you that before, Maury, but because I tell many people, comfort and growth don't go well together. And so, yes, the unknown was very difficult for me, but now I know that I made the right choice. By the way, I studied in the US, I became American, which rationally is not a good decision when you're European because it has a lot of consequences that I don't want to go through, but it's not. But it came from the heart as well, right? It was also for me a decision made to stay in this country, to align my status from a citizen standpoint with where I feel I should be and where I belong. Doesn't mean that I'm not a European anymore. Of course, I still feel French, and by the way, especially for the World Cup, let's go. But besides that, I felt that I had moved to this country. I want to settle here now, and I became a citizen as well. So that's my transition post-COVID. I don't know where this is going to take me, but I think it's all for the best.